In the heart of Ouagadougou, the first light of dawn stretched over the city, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. The air was still, thick with anticipation, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The hum of the day had not yet begun, and the market stalls were still empty, the streets devoid of the usual clamor. The faint echo of distant drums reverberated, barely audible, lost in the silence that enveloped the capital. President Ibrahim Traoré stood alone beside his darkened Land Cruiser, its sleek frame cutting through the morning light. His gaze was distant, lost in thought. His hands wrapped around a cup of tea, but his mind was already elsewhere, on the journey ahead. Today wasn't about the noise of the world. No cameras, no journalists, just him and his trusted team. It was a quiet, discreet visit, one that would take him far from the familiar sights of Ouagadougou. The mission today was critical, a visit to a rural peace meeting, a place where hope had yet to settle. Hundreds of young people were waiting for him, their futures hanging on the promises of leadership. But with each promise, there was a price. And this day, the cost felt closer than ever. Idrissa, his chief advisor, approached him with a suggestion. "The main road is blocked, sir. We'll be delayed for hours if we take the usual route. But there's a shortcut through the bush, much quieter. We'll be there in under an hour." The president paused, his eyes narrowing as he weighed the risk. The road was less traveled, cutting through the outskirts of the city, a route few took. And though Idrissa spoke with assurance, something about the offer didn't sit right with him. But time was something they didn't have. The youth were waiting. He had to decide. Karim, his bodyguard, stepped forward, his voice a low growl of warning. "I've always had my doubts about that road, sir. It's too desolate, too exposed." But the clock was ticking. Ibrahim nodded, his decision made. "We'll take the shortcut." As the convoy moved, the city's hum faded into the background, swallowed by the growing silence. The road ahead stretched out, narrow and winding, surrounded by nothing but thick brush. No people. No signs of life. Just the emptiness of the land, waiting for whatever was to come. As the convoy wound deeper into the bush, the silence grew heavier, the only sound the soft hum of the engines and the occasional rustle of the wind through the dense trees. The road, narrow and twisting, felt more isolated with every passing mile. There was no sign of life, no villagers, no animals, just the overwhelming expanse of land that seemed to swallow them whole. Then, as they rounded a sharp bend, something unusual appeared ahead. A lion. It stood in the middle of the dirt road, its massive frame motionless. Its eyes, glowing under the early morning sun, locked onto the convoy without a hint of fear or aggression. It didn't growl. It didn't move. It simply stood there, watching. The air seemed to thicken, as if the lion itself was waiting for something. The convoy came to a halt. Soldiers in the front truck shouted at the lion, urging it to move. The driver of the Land Cruiser honked the horn twice, but the beast did not flinch. It was as if it had become part of the landscape, an immovable force in the middle of the road. Karim, the head bodyguard, stepped out cautiously, his hand resting on his weapon. "This is strange," he muttered, scanning the area. "We need to move it." But the lion stood still, unblinking, its gaze unwavering. The soldiers tried again, waving their arms, shouting louder. One of them even fired a shot into the air, the crack of the gun echoing through the trees. Still, no movement. The lion remained, an immovable presence on the road. President Ibrahim Traoré sat in the back of the vehicle, watching the scene unfold before him. His instincts, honed through years of leadership, sensed that something was wrong. He felt it in his gut. The situation was too odd. Too still. This wasn't just an animal blocking the road. Something didn't feel right. "Stop the convoy," Ibrahim commanded. His voice cut through the tension in the air. The order was obeyed immediately. The engines fell silent. The soldiers, confused, looked back at the president, who was staring intently at the lion. His mind raced. What was it that the lion was guarding? Why wasn't it moving? "Send a man to check the ground beneath it," Ibrahim said, his voice steady but filled with an unspoken urgency. One of the soldiers hesitated but obeyed, cautiously approaching the lion. As he knelt near the creature, he inspected the dirt beneath its paws. His hand brushed the earth, and then, with a sudden motion, he pulled back sharply. "Sir, there's something here," the soldier called out, his voice rising in alarm. The convoy moved quickly, soldiers rushing to the spot. The lion didn't stir, as if it had fulfilled its role and now allowed them to investigate. Beneath its paws, just inches below the surface of the dirt, a thin wire was visible. The soldier traced it with his fingers, his face going pale as he followed the wire. "It's a trap," one of the soldiers muttered under his breath. He pulled back the dirt with his hands, revealing a landmine. The wire led to 2 more mines hidden nearby, their deadly mechanisms exposed. The convoy froze. The tension in the air was palpable. The lion had stopped them just in time. Ibrahim Traoré's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the mines, his thoughts racing. "The road was set up as an ambush," Karim said quietly, his voice tight with disbelief. "We were meant to hit those mines." Ibrahim exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving the lion. It had stood there, unflinching, guarding the path, and in doing so it had saved them. The lion, still watching from the middle of the road, gave no sign it had fulfilled its purpose. As the soldiers carefully secured the area, marking the mines, the lion slowly turned and, with one last lingering glance, disappeared back into the bush, vanishing without a trace. Ibrahim stood quietly, absorbing the weight of what had just happened. He had been spared not by force, not by strategy, but by something greater, something inexplicable. The lion had been the guardian of the land, and it had just kept them alive. The convoy now paused, hummed with an unsettling quiet. Soldiers were busy marking the mines, securing the area, but President Ibrahim Traoré couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The lion had saved them, yes, but who had orchestrated the ambush? Who had set this deadly trap in motion? And why had it been him, leading this convoy, that had been targeted? Ibrahim turned to Idrissa, his chief advisor, who stood nearby, his face tight with the strain of the moment. Ibrahim's gaze was piercing, the weight of the question pressing down on him. "I need answers, Idrissa," Ibrahim said quietly, his voice steady, but there was a sharp edge to it. "You said this road was cleared. You assured me it was safe. But now, I find landmines buried in the dirt. What happened?" Idrissa swallowed hard, his eyes darting around, clearly uncomfortable under the president's scrutiny. I don't know, sir," he stammered. "The road was clear. Our team checked it personally. I oversaw the clearance myself. There's no way something like this could have slipped past us." The words hung in the air like a lie half told. Ibrahim didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed. Idrissa had been too quick to recommend this route. Too insistent. His hesitation now was a crack in the armor of trust. "Are you telling me the truth, Idrissa?" Ibrahim's voice was quiet, but the tension in it was undeniable. Idrissa shifted uneasily, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. I swear it was all clear. There's no way." Before he could finish, a voice cut through the air. "Sir." Saiku, the head of security, approached, his face grim. "I intercepted something. It's not good." Ibrahim's attention snapped to Saiku, his pulse quickening. Saiku was calm, collected, but the tension in his demeanor was enough to signal trouble. "Go ahead," Ibrahim said. Saiku handed over a small device, showing Ibrahim a series of intercepted messages. "We tracked the communication logs. Someone from inside your team is feeding information to someone on the outside. These mines weren't placed by mistake. They were planted based on precise timing and knowledge of your movements." Ibrahim's heart sank. A mole. A traitor in his midst. The realization struck hard. The ambush wasn't just an attack from external forces, it was an inside job. "Do you know who?" Ibrahim asked, his voice cold. Saiku shook his head. "Not yet, sir. But we're narrowing it down. We'll find out." Ibrahim's gaze returned to Idrissa, who now looked like a man caught in a storm. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence between them was thick with unspoken truths. "I trusted you," Ibrahim said, his voice low. "And now this." Idrissa swallowed again, his hands trembling slightly. The president didn't need to say more. The implication was clear. Later that evening, as the convoy made its way back toward the city, the events of the day weighed heavily on Ibrahim's mind. The lion had appeared at the right moment, saving them from certain death. But who had placed those mines in the first place? And why? A village elder had joined the convoy after the incident, and as they passed through a small settlement on the outskirts of Ouagadougou, he looked toward Ibrahim and spoke quietly. "Lions don't just appear," the elder said, his voice filled with reverence. "They come for a reason. It was guarding you, son of the land." Ibrahim turned to the elder, his expression unreadable. The words echoed in his mind. A guardian. The lion hadn't been just an animal. It had been a protector, a symbol of something deeper, something that couldn't be explained by logic alone. The convoy continued on, but Ibrahim's thoughts lingered on the elder's words. The lion had saved them, but now more than ever, he understood that it wasn't just a matter of survival. It was a warning. As the convoy entered the city, the lion was gone. Vanished back into the bush, never to be seen again. Ibrahim knew it had fulfilled its purpose. But its absence left a lingering question. What had it truly been protecting him from? The truth was just beginning to unravel. The days following the ambush were filled with a sharp, uncomfortable quiet. President Ibrahim Traoré knew the threat wasn't over. The mines had been discovered, but the real danger, the betrayal within his own ranks, was just beginning to surface. The investigation moved swiftly. Saikou and his team worked tirelessly, scouring the security footage, tracking communications, and interviewing those closest to the president. Every detail was examined with surgical precision. The more they dug, the clearer it became. Someone had orchestrated the ambush from within. In a dimly lit room, Idrissa sat alone, his face pale and his hands shaking. Ibrahim stood just outside the door, watching through a one-way mirror. He had always trusted Idrissa. The advisor had been with him for years, his most loyal supporter. But now, the truth was impossible to ignore. Saikou entered the interrogation room, his expression unreadable. He placed a series of documents on the table in front of Idrissa, the papers filled with coordinates, maps, and data that painted a damning picture. "Explain this," Saikou said, his voice cold as he pointed to the screen. "GPS tracking. You've been in contact with foreign agents. We traced the signal. It came from a contractor, with links to private military firms. Langley Group to be specific." Idrissa's eyes widened, his breath catching in his throat. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he stared at the screen, at the damning evidence laid out before him. The pieces of the puzzle fit too perfectly. "Why?" Saikou asked, his voice lowering. "Why betray your own country?" Idrissa swallowed, his voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. They promised me a new life, safety for my family. They said if Traoré was removed, everything would change. I thought I could control it." The room fell silent, the weight of his confession hanging in the air. Ibrahim stepped into the room then, his presence commanding. "You risked everything, my life, the lives of everyone with me. And for what? A promise? A lie?" Idrissa looked up at the president, his eyes filled with fear and regret. "I didn't want to hurt you, sir. I thought—" "You thought you could control the outcome," Ibrahim interrupted, his voice steady, though a sharp edge lingered beneath his words. "But you couldn't. And now you've shown me who you truly are." Idrissa's head hung low, and for a long moment, there was no sound in the room but the quiet shuffle of papers. The truth had come out, but the sting of betrayal still cut deep. Later that evening, Ibrahim sought solace in the quiet of his office. The investigation was over, but his mind remained restless. The betrayal was clear, but there was something else, something deeper. Something he couldn't quite shake. He walked through the corridors of the palace, the walls adorned with artifacts and memories of the past. He found himself stepping into the gardens, the night air cool against his skin. And there, sitting by an old stone bench, was an elder, a spiritual leader who had served the land for decades. "I've been waiting for you," the elder said, his voice calm but filled with the weight of unspoken wisdom. Ibrahim sat down beside him, the weight of the past few days pressing down on him. The elder looked out into the night, his gaze distant. "The lion," Ibrahim said quietly, his mind still turning over the events of the ambush. What did it mean? The elder took a slow breath, his eyes soft yet knowing. A lion doesn't show up by chance. It was no ordinary creature. It was a guardian. Ibrahim turned to the elder, his brow furrowed. "A guardian?" The elder nodded, his gaze never leaving the horizon. "It wasn't just survival, son of the land. It was a warning. A sign. The land itself is speaking. It's telling you that there is much more at stake than what you can see. Forces from within and beyond want to undo what you're trying to build." Ibrahim listened, the weight of the elder's words sinking in. The lion hadn't just saved him, it had sent a message. A message that the battle wasn't just against the enemies at the gates, it was a fight for the soul of the nation itself. The elder paused, his voice lowering. "The lion guards the path, but only the worthy can walk it. The land will test you. The people will test you. And you must rise to meet those tests. Only then will you understand the full meaning of the warning." Ibrahim sat in silence, the weight of the elder's words pressing down on him. The path ahead was not just about survival. It was about resilience, and about standing strong in the face of forces that sought to divide and destroy. The lion had shown him that. The warning had been made clear. As the elder stood to leave, he turned to Ibrahim and whispered, "The guardian will not return. But its message remains. Carry it with you, for it will be needed." Ibrahim nodded, the enormity of the task ahead settling over him. The lion's message had been received. And now it was time to act. The evening sky over Ouagadougou was painted in shades of deep orange and violet, casting a soft glow over the capital. The air was thick with anticipation as the time drew near for President Ibrahim Traoré's broadcast. The streets were eerily quiet, the usual evening bustle replaced by an electrified stillness. People were gathered around radios, televisions, and wherever they could find a signal. Tonight, they would hear the president's words, and they would carry with them more than just news. They would carry a message, one that would shake the foundation of the nation. In the presidential palace, the cameras were set, the lights adjusted, and Ibrahim stood before the microphone, calm but resolute. He glanced once at the screen showing his reflection, the weight of what he was about to say settling heavily in his chest. His country, his people were waiting. And he would not let them down. The countdown began. The red light flashed. The broadcast was live. "Good evening, Burkina Faso," Ibrahim began, his voice steady, commanding attention. "This week, they tried to kill me. They set a trap, hoping to silence the truth, hoping to stop our progress. But they failed." His words echoed in the stillness of the room, and outside, the people listening felt the gravity of the moment. Ibrahim's eyes darkened, his gaze piercing as he continued. "They tried to kill me, but a lion stood between me and death." The room seemed to hold its breath, as if the nation was collectively pausing to process the magnitude of his statement. The lion, a symbol of strength and protection, had appeared when they needed it most. But Ibrahim knew the symbolism went deeper. Much deeper. "If even the wild protects our people," he continued, "then who are we to fear cowards in suits?" His words hit like a lightning strike. The camera held his gaze, the fire in his eyes undeniable. The lion, once a silent guardian in the bush, had now become a symbol for all of Burkina Faso, a symbol of resistance, courage, and the relentless fight for survival against unseen forces. Ibrahim took a deep breath before finishing. "They thought they could control us with money, with fear. But the land will not be silenced. We will not be controlled. This is our country. This is our fight. And we stand together, strong and unyielding. Across Ouagadougou, and all of Burkina Faso, the impact of Ibrahim's words was immediate. The streets buzzed with conversation, the nation reacting in real time. The people felt empowered, connected, and unbreakable. The lion had become more than just an animal. It was now the embodiment of their collective will, a symbol of resistance that resonated deeply with every citizen. In the days that followed, the city walls and the countryside were filled with murals of lions. Bold, striking images appeared overnight, painted by the hands of artists and youth eager to show their pride. The lion's image, regal, untamed, and fearless, was splashed across buildings, schools, and government offices. It wasn't just a tribute to an animal, it was a tribute to the spirit of the people. Poets and musicians, too, were inspired. In the crowded streets and peaceful villages, the words of songs began to shift. The lion became the central figure of new anthems and poems. The lion's roar was a phrase sung by countless youth, their voices raised in unity. The lyrics spoke of defiance, of standing up against foreign influence, of never backing down, no matter the odds. Young people took to the streets in vibrant movements, their energy contagious. They wore shirts emblazoned with the image of the lion. They carried flags with its powerful silhouette. It became a symbol of unity, of defiance, and of a new era for Burkina Faso, a time when the people no longer feared the forces that sought to divide them. By the time Ibrahim returned to his office that evening, the streets of Ouagadougou were alive with energy. The lion had become the heartbeat of the nation, its message a rallying cry for everyone who believed in the strength of their people, in the power of resistance. Ibrahim looked out the window of his office, watching the lighted streets below, the people gathering, talking, and celebrating their newfound strength. The lion's message had been heard, and it would not be forgotten. The morning sun had barely risen over the hills of Ouagadougou, casting a golden light over the countryside. Ibrahim Traoré stood alone at the edge of the road, where the events of days past had unfolded. The air was cool, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. The convoy had long since left the area, but Ibrahim had returned, seeking the place where the lion had appeared. The site had become sacred now, a symbol of something far greater than survival, a message from the land itself. He stood still, his eyes scanning the dirt road, remembering the tension, the silence, the sudden appearance of the lion. The land seemed to hold its breath, as if it, too, remembered. And then, just ahead of him, he saw it. A single paw print, clearly etched in the earth, its edges sharp and distinct. It was the only sign that the lion had ever been there. Ibrahim knelt down, his fingers brushing the dirt gently. The print was deep, as if the lion had stood there for a long while, its powerful presence marking the very ground it had protected. But as his eyes followed the print, something puzzled him. There were no tracks leading in or out. The lion had appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as mysteriously. No signs of movement. No disturbance. It was as though the lion had never truly been part of this world, or had simply returned to the one it came from. Ibrahim stood up slowly, the weight of the moment settling over him like a cloak. The silence around him was profound, but not empty. It was filled with meaning, filled with purpose. He could feel the presence of the lion, not as an animal, but as a guardian, watching over the land, watching over the people. And in that moment, Ibrahim understood that the lion's role was far from finished. It had come when needed, and it had left when its work was done. He took a deep breath, his heart steadying as he whispered to the wind, his words almost lost in the rustle of the leaves. "Thank you, guardian of the land." The lion's message had been received. It had come not only to protect him but to remind him of the strength of his people, the land, and the spirit that could never be broken. As Ibrahim turned to leave, the wind picked up once more, carrying with it a distant sound, a low, powerful roar that seemed to echo from the hills. It was the roar of the lion, a final note of defiance, of protection, and of legacy. The sun rose higher, the light illuminating the path ahead, and the roar of the lion slowly faded into the horizon, leaving behind a nation forever changed. This is not just a story of survival, it's a story of resistance, of standing firm when the world tries to break you. A story of the lion, the guardian of the land, who reminds us all that even in the darkest times, we have the strength to rise. Now it's your turn. The fight for justice, unity, and freedom never ends. Stand with us. Share this story, spread the message of the lion, and let the world know that the spirit of Burkina Faso, and the guardians that protect it, will never be silenced. Subscribe to Ibrahim Traoré Parables, share, and be part of the change for more stories of resistance and strength.